So yesterday I had the day off of work and Kaylee did not, so I watched a few films, and two of them were a new Indonesian duology of films. The first one came out last year, and the new one came out like this week, yesterday, day before yesterday, I don't know. And these have an Indonesian title on Netflix that I have no idea how to pronounce, but it translates to The Female Followers of the Devil, Part 1 and 2. And so, because I have to watch these things in order, of course, I have to have the context of the first one, and I had the time to sit down and watch 3 hours of two movies I had never heard of before because I'm a psychopath that wants to watch everything new. I'm here to talk about both of them. Usually when I watch these back to back like this, I do them both in one review. So we have these women. Mostly we're following in the first film Sumi, and she lives with her dad, and her dad gets an injury and he has to stop working, and she's down on her luck and she doesn't know where to go and this and that. So she starts getting a voice of a demon in her head, and then he physically appears, and only to her though, and he's like, you have to do these things. Essentially, this is a demon that takes advantage of women who are in a bad place, have things that are going terrible for them, and he makes them commit terrible acts for him to give them a leg up, to give them power. And in doing so, of course, they sell their soul to him and become his followers and whatever. This is a really, really silly series here of movies. Series, it's only 2 movies, but I had a really good time with these both. These felt pretty different than the typical Indonesian horror films I watch. Yes, it was, somebody possessed in a small village. That was all the same. This actually kind of almost felt like an anime of sorts. It's not like over the top in the sense of there's a bunch of action going on like in an anime, but for some reason it was giving me the vibes of what an anime would feel like, a smaller scale one anyway. There's a lot of ridiculous, silly laughter in this movie from multiple characters. There's a prostitute character. I don't know how to pronounce her name. I kept trying to listen to it. It's just Asish, which is like Ashi, I think is how they were saying it. She has a ridiculous laugh, and then the demon himself, who laughs every fucking minute that he's on screen. So she had a witch's cackle, and every time somebody laughed in this movie, it was so over the top and theatrical and dramatic, and it was pretty funny. And I also just thought the first film was a little more dark and a little more serious, and then it started to get more ridiculous. And then in the second movie, it gets even more, and it just becomes silly, but in a really fun way. And the actress who plays Sumi, she's really hamming it up towards the end, especially. She's doing this hunchback, and then she does her face, and she's like that the whole time, and you can't help but laugh pretty much the whole time she's on screen because of how she's holding herself. But yeah, I did have a really good time with these. You have to be into this, into this country's filmmaking. I watch a lot of Indonesian horror films on Netflix, cover them here. Nobody ever gives a shit. I don't know why I continue to keep covering this when, most of my audience never watches these and never gives them chances and rarely ever throws these things on and pretty much only watches my review, if at all, anything. But, there's actually a decent amount of gore here. Now, with a lot of Indonesian horror, there's a lot of CG used. I'd say there's a good blend of CG versus practical. Of course, there's more CG than is to my liking, But what practicals we get are good. It is pretty violent at times. Nothing crazy or anything. But I don't know. I did really buy into all of this. I really had a good time with like the history and like because the first one ends with a to be continued. So this is a 100% like a 3 hour film that they just broke into two parts. And what was cool is that in the first film, we mostly follow Sumi. There is another character, Sari, who her story is touched upon a bit in the first movie, but then it's touched upon even more in the second. But then that's more of a Ashi's film. The second one, we get a big opening. But what's cool is that the first one ends with this kind of like cliffhanger of like, you basically know who this character is going to be, but like it's then explored in the first like 30 minutes of the second film, which then leads up to the events and literally the scene that the first film ends on. And so then you get like all of the backstory because you were wondering like what happened with this and that. And they're all made to kill people that they love, and they all have done things to each other kind of unbeknownst to them because the demon purposely like pitted them against each other. And so there's like a lot of drama between them. And when they come together, they're like this almost like coven of witches. But then there's all this like infighting and drama because they find out like what each other did, and they're like digging bodies up and bringing them back from the dead. And I had a great time. I did. I had a great time with these. They're very silly, but very enjoyable. And I liked the performances. I thought they were all perfectly over the top and goofy like the rest of this. I don't want to make it seem like it's a comedy. It's not. I don't know what the intention of tone is here. I don't know if this was on purpose or not. Is this trying to be dead serious and scary? I can see some of it being that way because the first like 45 minutes of the first film is very like kind of somber and dark. And I actually, and Sumi is a character that I was really intrigued by because she's shown to be fairly sadistic in nature in the beginning of the movie because she's like walking around and seeing people like there's a like an amputation scene that she's watching, and she's sitting back there like very interested in it and kind of like smiling. And then there's this guy like butchering a goat, and she's like coming in like, I want to learn how to do that, and she's like very excited by it. And this is before the demon's even around, so she already has like a proclivity for this. So I found that fascinating. And all of the characters are not like squeaky clean good people. And so anyway, I really did have a good time with these. I recommend them for sure to anybody who likes silly over the top foreign films. And I'm curious on what you guys think if you check them out. They're both on Netflix as we speak. And other than that, I'll see you in the comments. Adios.